Additives with Paul Rosen.
Our diets, our Western diets in America are just really, you just don't realize how poor they really are.
What would you say to others who would like to feel better?
Sometimes you need to find the instructions. That's where the testing and everything comes in, because without that knowledge, there's no way I could have got to the point where I'm at today.
Straight talk about health.
And then I start preaching and telling them what I've been doing. And this guy named Paul Rosen has changed my life.
With your host, Paul Rosen.
By the way, the information contained in this program is not approved by the FDA, nor intended to treat, diagnose, or claim to cure any medical condition or disease as defined by Western medicine. However, skilled practitioners of many disciplines have found nutrition response testing to be a highly reliable supportive technology for assessing the health and fitness of the body's functional system.
So let's get down to definitions first. What is a food sensitivity, Paul?
You have to ask that question?
Yeah, I do. Oh. Just so we're clear about what we're talking about.
A food sensitivity is a reaction to a food that you put in your mouth.
So that reaction, as we jokingly alluded to a few minutes ago, can manifest itself physically in something like bloating or a migraine or any number of other unpleasant things.
There are grades of food sensitivities and certainly grades of reaction. There are those that cause anaphylactic shock, a food allergy, so to speak.
So this could be those people who are allergic to peanuts, for example. That's
for example,
very common.
That's a common, and we're going to talk about that actually. Why it might be that more and more people are seemingly allergic to peanuts. Food sensitivities are sort of in the less dramatic category, although they can, over an extended period of time, create serious conditions like celiac disease, or IBD, irritable bowel disease, or other types of gastrointestinal problems.
Are food sensitivities different from allergies, for example, or are they related in some way?
Well, again, you wanted to be technical. I mean, allergies are those that put your life in danger.
So food sensitivities maybe
food
not
sensitivity,
so much.
Food
But they can also cascade, as you've indicated. They can lead to more serious health problems.
Correct. So the question is, why is it that, when you look to your right and you look to your left, you look behind you, you look in front of you, you're probably looking at a person that has a food sensitivity. How did this happen? I mean, people have all these food sensitivities in 1920?
Well, okay,
no,
so
they didn't.
That's where you're going with that thought, and I can hazard some guesses. Would you like to hear my guesses as to why we might be more susceptible in our modern age to food sensitivities than we were in the past?
If you had a little bell we could ring when you got it.
I don't have a little bell.
But you don't have a little bell.
How about that little bell?
You see,
right I tell you.
But I'm supposed to ring it if you get it.
Well, you're supposed to ring it?
Yeah.
If I say something that's accurate?
Yeah.
How patronizing is that? I'll tell you what. Here you go. Here is your bell. The correct answer bell.
Being as that I am the patron,
I feel
perhaps
that's generous of me to give you that. So
it's true.
You can engage in that particular.
It's true. You don't want to give me a little toy because I might overuse it.
I'm sure you'll find great self-gratification.
All right, go ahead. Take a guess.
Okay, I'm going to guess because our food is more processed these days. And your hand's hovering over the bell. Plus, our food has more preservatives and additives and artificial sweeteners that make us more susceptible to food allergies or food sensitivities. See? I'm just hitting a home run every time. So that could quickly become annoying.
All it shows is that you've been listening all these years.
Right. So if we get more of that bell going, I don't know, that could quickly become distracting.
It could. So we're going to put it aside.
I may have to put out some inaccurate information just so you're not banging on that thing all for the next 2 hours. So, anyway, the point is what?
So the first thing is we want to back up and see how our body is reacting. Through what mechanism is it reacting to foods in the first place? And that is our immune system. And although there are, and I'm really boiling this down, folks, because, to talk technical, I know can be really confusing, and I don't want to use that language. But there are two parts of the immune system that I want to talk about. One's called adaptive, the other's called innate. And the adaptive immune system is the one you're probably more familiar with. and that is the one where you have a reaction to some kind of, a bug or protein. You develop an immunity to the introduction of, some a protein or, some bug of some sort once you overcome whatever symptoms you might get from that. And you develop this immunity to it. That's the adaptive immune system.
So are you referring to the resistance to childhood diseases?
Your body produces antibodies.
Okay.
You've heard that expression.
Right.
That
so if you have the measles once, you don't have them again. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Is that what we're referring to?
Correct. And then there's the innate, which is this sort of amorphous part of the system where there's this introduction of some stuff. Let's just call it stuff, like gluten, for example, and that your body has an inflammatory response to it. That's a general response, and unfortunately, there's no end to it. It can continue to do that, creating an inflammatory ongoing pattern in your system that ultimately leads to other, degradation of various parts of your body, like your intestines.
This is your innate immune system you're referring to? Mm-hmm. So what's the point if it's not able to adapt and help your body better fight whatever foreign agents are causing problems? I mean, why does this thing even have a place?
Well, it has a place because it's telling you via the symptoms, via the bloating, via the excessive flatulence, via the headaches, all of the symptoms that you might get, right? That doesn't happen unless this part of the immune system is operating.
Okay, so these two work hand in hand. These two parts of the immune system are two separate immune systems, adaptive and innate, work separately towards actually similar goals, it sounds like to me.
So it's why, for example, with some people, when you eliminate the inflammatory factor that's creating this, all of a sudden the symptoms begin to disappear and you start to feel better.
So how do you eliminate the inflammatory factor?
You stop eating it.
Okay, so you have a food sensitivity that's causing your body to react in this negative way, right?
Correct.
But first you have to identify, don't you, what foods are causing these reactions?
Correct. And that's nutrition response testing.
And these foods will have specific ingredients in them, which we mentioned briefly earlier, which may include artificial sweeteners, additives, etc., so on and so forth.
Yes.
But not necessarily.
But not necessarily at all. Take wheat, for example, as a perfect example. A lot of people are sensitive to wheat now. Well, one line of thought, and the line that I particularly accept at the moment, is that the wheat that we eat today is not the wheat that was actually raised and brought to market, 50, 100 years ago.
So this makes perfect sense. If we're using different means of production than we did 50 years ago, and we've discussed this many times, it's means of production meant to enhance the volume of production, right?
Well, the volume and I mean all different kinds of reasons. Hybridizing a product. Is useful, but yes, for the most part, what certainly the farmers are looking to do is to try to overcome, pest infestation, for example, right? Because
sure. So
if you're growing food for the bugs,
and they're spraying their crops as you're indicating with all kinds of nastier and better bug-killing pesticides. And I assume, too, I don't know the mechanics of it necessarily, but I think the bugs are developing resistances to whatever they come up with to get rid of the bugs, so they have to keep making this stuff more powerful.
And even more so than that is the actual food itself. All plants have within them their own immune systems, their own defense mechanisms, which are inherently, sort of warding off pests and other types of issues, right? Well, the new wheat is enhanced in that respect. And it turns out that the the factors that are enhanced in that wheat are the same factors that cause the innate part of our immune system to react in an inflammatory way.
So there's a steady escalation, it sounds like to me.
Exactly. It was always there because everything that we put in our mouth that is fresh from the environment out, right, especially, plants, have their own immune systems. Right, we call them, anti-nutritional factors. You've heard me use the word oxalate, phytate, these types of things. That chemistry is the chemistry that is part of the plant's own immune system. Is that making a little sense?
Yes, it does. It makes plenty of sense.
Well, wheat is just one of those things, right? Other grains, the grains tend to have, it seems, they tend to have more of these factors. They're called TLRs, which trigger a quick
Is that an
inflammatory.
acronym?
It is, yes.
Okay, TLRs.
Yeah.
Do we know what that's an acronym for?
We do, and I'm not going to tell you.
Okay.
So I'm going to keep you on.
While you're looking that up,
I'm going to keep you on pins and needles.
I will speculate that grains may be being more susceptible to these kinds of factors. The fact that they could be not as healthy as they were in the past is an especially bad thing because grains are everywhere. Is that correct?
Grains are. That's exactly
we have
right.
Many foods which contain grains or elements of grains. So maybe we're consuming those without even knowing it. And worse, we're consuming these grains which are, I don't want to say contaminated, but certainly they are produced in a way that could have a more negative reaction from our systems.
Yes. Yeah, because we have these receptors in our body which are looking, which are triggered by invaders. And we're talking about wheat, but yes, grains in general have more of these invaders. So we see more a reaction we call food sensitivities. The other thing is, and we had talked a few weeks back about vaccinations. Well, it turns out that part of the substance in vaccinations comes from soy and peanut.
No kidding. So these flu vaccinations, which are trendy every season, include those ingredients also?
Not every vaccination, but certainly the vaccinations that children are getting before the age of 2.
So are soy and peanuts, and maybe you don't know this necessarily, Paul, but are those preservatives? I mean, why are they included in a vaccination of all things?
Gets into a really complicated, discussion. I just want to throw out the recognition that soy and peanuts essentially are part of the product. They're called adjuvants or additives. Part of the product in making these vaccinations. And therefore, these proteins are being injected directly into the bloodstream. Remember the part of the immune system that I talked about reacts to these proteins? The adaptive immune system, antibodies.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You create antibodies to the soy and peanut proteins. And what happens at some point when you eat them?
So you're going to have this negative reaction.
Correct.
And that's a further negative reaction you may experience to a flu vaccine because you just don't know that stuff is also
Well,
in there.
I'm talking more, I don't know for certain if the flu vaccine has got these peanut or soy proteins in them. But certainly the vaccines that young children before the age of 2 are given.
So you're not really mainlining Reese's Pieces necessarily, but there should be, a small amount of those ingredients.
You follow where I'm going here.
I hear where you're going.
So what I'm saying is why is there this explosion? You ask the question. Why are is this explosion of peanut and soy allergies in young children? That may provide the answer, or at least a major part of the answer.
Could there also be something in the diets of younger people, preschoolers in particular, and not necessarily candies and things like that, but maybe foods that we're feeding them that we think are healthy, but which may have ingredients in them which could among other things, create these food sensitivities.
Not necessarily the allergy reaction, because we're talking allergies. You asked me the question before we started this whole discussion, right? What's the difference between a food allergy and a food sensitivity? A food sensitivity is more a reaction that does not create antibodies. It creates more of a chronic inflammatory pattern. A food allergy is actually will create potentially a life-threatening reaction.
So obviously,
anaphylactic shock, inability to breathe, for example, found in peanut allergies.
And that's
soy
that's your
allergies.
body reacting against your allergy to that particular food.
It's your
obviously.
body reacting to an already achieved, antibody in your own system.
So when I brought up this aversion to peanuts as a food sensitivity, really that wasn't accurate. That's
Correct.
more of an allergy, as you said, and it has these more serious consequences.
Correct.
So that's a good distinction to know, I think, even though the food sensitivities, as we're discussing this morning, do have a number of uncomfortable, potentially embarrassing, and potentially worsening symptoms.
Food sensitivities unaddressed create all kinds of havoc going forward that may not, until sometime way later, right, be discovered, and certainly almost, never is connected to, a disease you might experience if that disease isn't a digestive disorder, right? So the food sensitivities can create all kinds of things: high blood pressure, heart issues, arthritis, thyroid issues, endocrine issues of all sorts, right? Which may or may not be manifest themselves as a digestive disorder.
So we hope it doesn't come to that. If people say, for example...
Well, it does come to that.
Well, but that's what we're trying to avoid.
But there's no hoping. We got to stop hoping and start doing.
If somebody has a bad reaction to any particular food, they say, I can't eat this many, burritos because it just makes me queasy. I mean, is that a food sensitivity to
not
an ingredient
necessarily
in
not
that
necessarily
particular food?
Yeah, not necessarily. But over time, most people in the U.S., their digestive systems are, denigrated, they're eroded, they're compromised because of the poor food choices that, most people make, certainly in the earlier part of their life.
So if you do that, I mean, if you overconsume, it could be any number of things, but think about that.
It's not about overconsuming necessarily. It's about it's about a digestive system that just isn't capable of handling that chemistry anymore. So you have a reaction to it. It's very complicated. But the bottom line is, if you're eating food and you're getting symptoms from eating that food, there's more than just food sensitivities going on. It takes a long time to develop a food sensitivity. Not very long to develop a food allergy, because that's usually happening, as a child. I mean, you'll know that, pretty much right away. It'll freak you out if that such a thing is present. But certainly the parents, anyway. But a food sensitivity takes time, generally, to manifest itself. And so you may not even know you have a food sensitivity, but what you'll start to experience is digestive disruption. The symptoms that you mentioned earlier: bloating, excessive gas, acid reflux is a condition that where food. Where the body has become sensitive to certain foods over time.
So I'm guessing, too, that maybe we develop food sensitivities to foods that we like, which is real unfortunate, right?
Sure. And you can develop sensitivities to foods you don't like. or you may have sensitivities of food you don't like.
Well, if
your implication is, if you're eating something over and over and over and over again, that's how you develop these food sensitivities. That's not necessarily true.
Well, no, and I don't think I was implying that necessarily. I'm saying that it may be more difficult for us as consumers to deal with that, the fact that we have to cut something out of our diets that we really enjoy.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, the bottom line is if I could tell you have acid reflux, and now you're on, 2 proton pump inhibitors, your blood pressure is rising, your things are going on, and I say, hey, stop eating. This is after your nutrition response testing evaluation, right? It reveals that you need to eliminate some grains from your diet. Are you going to whine and if you are, you're not ready. You're not ready to do what's necessary.
Right, and if you're going to do that, I mean,
it's like somebody who lives next to a river. You know that river at some point is going to flood. You take no action, no preventative action, and one day it floods, wipes you out. Right? You're going to whine? Probably. But what? I mean, the risk was there all along. You did nothing to deal with it. I got no sympathy for that.
Well, good, and you should not.
If you, I can't. As a teacher and a practitioner, what good am I if I go, I understand. Your Mr. Goodbar is so important to you. Now, I can share information with you that says, if you continue to eat these Mr. Goodbars, there is no chance in, bleep bleep, that you're ever going to turn your health around. But never fear. A little bit now and again. What's it going to hurt?
That doesn't sound like you.
Exactly right.
That sounds like somebody's faulty inner voice.
Yeah, and if I did that, what good would I be? It wouldn't do you any good. Someone's got to be the anchor. Someone's got to say, Rod, look, you're ready to change. You're tired of these migraines. You're tired of this acid reflux. Tired of the high blood pressure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Let's get started. You don't have to do it all at once. Take one step at a time. But let's get started. Don't look to me for, sympathy in terms of, it's the holiday season and, I've got to have my fruitcake. Well, then you got to have your disease, too.
Side note, nobody has to have their fruitcake.
Oh, okay. Well,
so we're clear on that.
Is fruitcake history now?
I think it's still around, but I don't think anybody eats them. I always thought they were for decorative purposes.
And fruitcake, I mean, this year's fruitcake, can be around for 10 or 20 years, I understand.
That's true, as a matter of fact. If there was a nuclear strike, we'd have roaches and fruitcake and not much else. So let's say we identify the foods that are harming us. Let's say,
and we do that with an evaluation.
So we have, for example, sensitivity to grains. We say we need to cut out grains in our diet. How do we go about doing that? Because we've established also that, again, using grains for an example, they're everywhere.
It's really simple. It's really simple, and we teach all of our patients how to do that. It's really simple. It's not complicated.
Well, is it just
it's just a decision that you make.
Well, is it a matter of reading ingredient
yes.
labels?
The first thing, of course, you're going to do is go to a store and start reading ingredients. And whenever any of our patients do that, right, the next visit they come back and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe there's corn and everything. There's wheat and everything. There's soy in everything. And the sugar, oh my gosh. It's in every processed food. Every processed food. And that's the dilemma, right? Unbeknownst to us, because we never really took the time to read the ingredients. Most people don't. Right? Most people don't. They don't take the time.
We take that leap and we go ahead and do that, and we're kind of shocked to discover how many of these harmful things are in so many of our foods. Doesn't mean necessarily we're doomed to a diet of flavorless, unexciting, uninteresting food.
Absolutely not. On the contrary. Because of those foods that people have been eating, you've lost your taste buds. You don't even know what things taste like anymore. And I get that because the feedback from people, from my patients, tells me that. Oh my gosh, I've got my taste buds back. Oh, I could taste this. Wow, that asparagus is really sweet. That, broccoli or cauliflower or cabbage or, onions, garlic, whatever. You get your taste buds back. You lose them when you eat processed foods. Literally, you lose them.
So it is possible to have a rich food life, let's say, and a healthy one too.
Much richer than the one you've got right now, right? If you're eating, Big Macs, if you're eating fast food and you're eating, pre-made food, right, that comes in packages, cans and plastic and Mylar and, whatever, then, you don't really know what food tastes like.
And speaking of how our systems evolve, I used to eat plenty of junk food, especially when I was younger.
Me too.
When I go for the quarter pounder now, which I don't, but when I do, on those very rare occasions, the most recent having been maybe 3 years ago, it just doesn't taste as good as it used to.
Mm-hmm.
And does that have to do with maybe me actually having developed some taste, or does it mean that my body is actually adjusting as I get a little bit older?
There are departments in the largest, food corporate headquarter types. There are departments where chemists look for the various, chemicals to addict us to their foods. That's what they're doing.
So the foods are not only generated to have a certain taste, they are meant to be addictive?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What better business plan?
Though, I mean, you can say, hey, I'm hooked on whatever. I'm hooked on cappuccinos, whatever it is you like because of the flavor. But beyond that, are these foods chemically enhanced to create physical addictions?
Yes. If they can. You bet. Why can't you not only eat one?
Because the commercial says I can.
What? I mean, I'm just saying.
Because it commands me to have more.
Exactly.
And who am I to say no?
Exactly.
To that message.
Right.
So I think the important part, or the important point that we're making here is that you can still have great food, and it can be healthy, and it can be actually tailored to your specific needs and tailored against foods which may be harmful to you specifically.
We've talked about this many times. The adulteration of our food supply was inspired by the perceived issue of shelf life, right? If you could make a product that lasted on the shelf longer, then there's less spoilage, right? Which is going to save you a ton of dough. Right? That's why a Twinkie could sit on the shelf for 3 lifetimes and not even a cockroach would eat it.
One more note, you can get a free chapter of Paul Rosen's book, The Missing Piece. Just go to his website, acunatural.com, acunatural.com, and fill out the dialog box that pops up. Rest assured, no information you provide will ever be shared with anyone else. So, what are you waiting for? Get going on your personal road to wellness today.